Hello and welcome to the Calling All Heroes Comics Podcast. This is the very first time that we're not only recording the podcast for an audio release, but we're also going to videotape it. We're here at Calling All Heroes Comics, hence the name, Calling All Heroes Comics Podcast. I'm George. I'm joined by Gary.
Hello.
And Wolz.
Hey.
And today, you may have noticed we got a little bit of a Halloween theme going on here. You know. Today is the Halloween Comic Fest. Thousands and thousands of comic stores all over the country are participating. We're giving away, I have probably around 12 or 1,500 comics to give away today.
Nice.
And then, of course, there's some other specials and prizes. We're having a costume contest that's sponsored by Diamond. Diamond's doing a thing, they're calling it the world's greatest costume contest, and they're going to give away $250 worth of stuff. Anything you want that Diamond carries or deals with. So
wow.
That's pretty cool.
That's nice.
But yeah, so what's on everybody's mind this week?
Halloween?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That was a nice segue, Gary. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
But comic books, and I never thought about it before, but comic books and Halloween, I mean, how much cooler is that?
Yeah.
It isn't, it isn't any cooler.
I know Wolz and I are huge monster fans, so.
Absolutely.
We got Hellboy, we got Venom, which is a monster.
For sure.
It may not be a monster movie, but, a lot of comic book villains, are monsters.
Yeah.
If the Joker did a movie, he starred in it, it'd be a monster movie.
Yeah.
It'd be a horror film, correct?
If it's good, it would be.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, if they did it right. Yeah.
I mean, even if you look at the cartoon of the Killing Joke cartoon, I mean, that's kind of, I don't know if you guys saw the animated cartoon.
No, I've heard about it.
I've heard as well.
Is it realistic, or is it more like the Batman Adventures?
It's very much like the animated series, yeah.
Okay.
But it does, I mean, it's kind of creepy. I wasn't a huge fan. They added a lot of stuff in there to make it a 2 hour or an hour and a half movie.
Right.
But
yeah. Out, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I would call the Joker a monster in that movie for sure. So.
Well, I have no greater love than this season in monsters. I mean, that was my whole connection to comic books. I mean,
yeah.
I've branched off into superheroes. I like superhero comics. But my first thing was the reprint monster books.
Mm-hmm.
The Kirby Dicko, whomever, was doing things at the time, Don Heck, and those stories that were reprinted in the 70s. I love that stuff. And that was my initiation to the comic world, and they always have a nice landing spot in my heart.
Well, I've heard a lot of times that like all the animators for Warner Brothers and MGM, they all came from Disney for the most part. And I think there's maybe an analogy there in comics that the superhero comic artists, a lot of them came from the monster stuff.
Yeah.
Because the monster stuff predated that.
Yeah.
Did you guys both get into the monster comics first and then go to superheroes, or maybe we were into some superhero stuff and then went backwards? Like when you hear a band you really like and want to go backwards to hear what they did earlier?
Well, obviously my favorite character is the Hulk, and he is a monster.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, if you look at the early Kirby, first, 6 issues, Ditko Kirby,
Mm-hmm.
he looks like Frankenstein.
Yeah.
If you look at Boris Karloff or Glenn Strange or any of the original ones and stuff, and you look at Kirby's original Hulk, he looks like Frankenstein. Yeah. The big brow.
Yeah.
He was even gray.
Yeah, the first issue.
So so you're, even though Boris Karloff and those guys were green, they made him green stuff, and they look good in black and white.
Mm-hmm.
It's when you see the stills years later on, and you see him, he actually has green makeup on, which is the same as Herman Munster.
Yeah, the monsters. Right. Yeah, they're
when
wild.
When you see him, in color, you're like, whoa, that's not what I was expecting.
Right.
Yeah.
But they are black. It's black and white. So henceforth, the Gray Hulk.
Cool.
Yeah. So it's always been monsters for me.
Yeah, I'd have to say the same thing. Now, my Uncle Lefty, who initiated me into the comic world, used to give me a plethora. He liked some superhero stuff, but he was mostly into the horror titles. And at that time, like Swamp Thing was coming out, and Tomb of Dracula, Werewolf by Night, those are the comics, along with the reprint books, like the monster reprint books. Those are the kind of books that he would give to me. And I don't know. It's something about Jack Kirby. That's the first time I saw those books, and I looked at like a story a monster story that he did. I can't really explain it. It just, I love it. I mean, I just was immediately drawn to it.
Yeah.
I had no objection to it. It didn't, the thick fingers, the heavy lines, how he was so good at drawing characters, but they all had the Kirby touch. Every one, the people in the crowd and the creatures, monsters, and superheroes, they all looked like they belonged to that universe, and I love that.
Can I say it only adds to the mythos of your comic collecting that you were introduced by someone known as Uncle Lefty?
Uncle Lefty.
That's great.
Uncle Lefty was super cool.
Well, it being Halloween, do you guys have any personal favorite monster stories? Any whether it's a book, a comic book, of course, or a graphic novel, or a trade, or a book, a novel, anything. What's some of your favorite stuff?
Well, obviously, one of the last things that we talked about was the Comic-Con, Baltimore Comic-Con. Mm-hmm. And I'm always sending suggestions to them. I've been trying to get Rich Corbin there.
Yeah.
Michael T. Gilbert from Mr. Monster, speaking of monsters.
Yeah.
Guy who hunts and kills monsters. And then I've had John Tottleman, and I would love to. I met both of them back in the day, and Steve Bissett, who did the Alan Moore run. Mm-hmm. Did the majority with Rick Veitch.
Yeah.
A couple other people.
Yes.
But they were the two artists, and one of the only comic books I've ever read in the daytime that actually scared me back when it was going on. And it was pretty creepy. It was like reading.
That's cool.
It was like, Michael and Jason and Freddy, in comic books. I mean, it was that creepy.
Yeah.
That's cool.
American Gothic. And
Yes.
So I would love to have those guys. I would love for them to show back up at the convention.
Sure.
And,
sure.
But the Swamp Thing, I would love. And, of course, Alan Moore.
Yeah.
Who I've never... Brian Boland was there a couple years ago. I didn't think I'd ever meet him. Of course, he's got to come over from England.
Yeah.
And Alan Moore's another one that it would be so cool for him to come by, and I can't imagine how many books we'd have for him to sign. Just not the Swamp Thing, but just everything that he's done.
Well,
the Watchmen.
Yeah.
But just talking about that real quick, I was doing some organizing, and I found I had a little section where I had signed books, only Swamp Thing books. And I had 10 different creators that have been on the titles.
Wow.
From Len and Bernie, and just some obscure Brian Boland doing those covers.
Yeah.
Eric Powell doing one of the covers in, was it the 4th installment or, yeah. But I looked through them, and I'm looking at them. They're really cool. Charles Vess, Corbin, all these guys. Alan Moore is the one that sticks out. I mean, there's a couple other ones I'd like to have, like Tom Yeats that's doing Prince Valiant now in the paper. He did a run on the Saga Swamp Thing. He did most of the early issues, and I really liked his work. I'd like to have his autograph, but by far having Alan Moore's, something signed by Alan Moore. And I even cheat. I look on eBay and stuff. I never see anything. I want a Swamp Thing signed by Alan Moore. If anybody's out there listening. But,
with Alan Moore, obviously, if he showed up at the Comic-Con, Baltimore Con, the line's going to be around the block. Is Rich Corbin on that level? Do you think? Or?
To us, he is.
Yeah.
But did you get there and be like Eric Powell, and you maybe just walk right up, and there'd be a lot of people who it's under their radar?
I think so. Obviously, people that have been around for a long time would know who he is, and it goes to. I think we've discussed this before. I went to the convention, and you're seeing all these books for $3 to $5, and they're books from 25 centers. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 20, 25. Nothing major. But, the Marvel team-ups or, some of the old stuff, 2-in-1s, old Daredevil issues. And I asked the guys, I don't understand. Why are these books? They're in beautiful shape. Why are they $3 to $5? And he said, because they don't sell. And what means to me, nostalgic-wise and stuff, they weren't the greatest comic books. These aren't stuff that I'm still rereading.
Right. But
they're part of my childhood. Right. And his point is the audience has moved on to other things. We've talked about anime and everything else. People just moved on. Mm-hmm. Your clientele and what, and sometimes we joke about it, and of course it's always joking about it, but things that people read that we don't, that are younger, they're not into the old Kirby monster books. They probably don't even know what they are. Right. And that's, hopefully they do.
It's why I have kids that come in on the Marvel Milestone or True Believer stuff. And they'll come in and say, "Oh, is this new?" On the Kirby run.
It is to you.
It's funny. It's funny. Yeah. It's really funny to think of that. I'm trying to put myself in their shoes and just knowing how, for me, it's just carried through my entire life. Since I was 8 years old, and someone to look at that and go, "Wow, is this something new?" It's just there's nothing wrong with that. There's zero wrong with that. But it's just so amusing to me because I'm so ingrained with that.
Well, with your musical background, I'm sure you had people walk in and hey, the Beatles, it's a new thing to them. Having all ages coming in the store and stuff.
Well, the Beatles have always been a
source of contention.
Yeah. Not so much, but there again, to me, what I listen to is just for me. Yeah. And of course, with Mr. Walls, he doesn't like per se pop music, and you don't get much better pop music than the Beatles. Right. But you got to be objective, and that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah. Clarity. I respect the genius and legend of the Beatles. It's not something I listen to.
It's
on a
not your
regular
jam,
basis.
and that's,
it's not my jam. You
and
know,
that's cool.
But I want to make it for the record. Though. I appreciate the greatness. Especially, I'll tell you one. Just make it quick. Ringo. Ringo's always overlooked, I think. Ringo absolutely is one of the best drummers that have ever picked up sticks. And everything he did made sense. It didn't have to be flamboyant. Everything he did made sense. When I listen to the Beatles, I listen more to him now than anything because he makes sense.
There was an interview. You guys might not know this, but I'm a big Genesis fan. Phil Collins was on Jay Leno years and years and years ago, and he was asked about like anybody that was underrated or this and that. And he said Ringo Starr, absolutely the most underrated musician that I know of. He said he does things that most people don't even understand.
Yeah.
And I mean, for him to put him over, you know,
and of course
cool.
that's putting him back up to 4th place as opposed to no place in the Beatles.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I always had a soft spot for
We're
him.
letting him slip by George Martin.
Yeah.
Well, maybe a 5th place after George Martin.
Yeah, that's terrible.
As being appreciated because he has 3 other people in this band that are legendary.
Yeah.
And not that he doesn't get.
Oh,
any
he's
respect.
iconic. Ringo Starr's iconic.
Yeah.
Because he was successful as a solo artist. He still has his all stars going out.
Yeah.
And he has very talented people out there, Rungert and stuff, at his side.
Yeah. I saw him last year. It was
He
incredible.
produced a child that is equally as talented as him. His son is tremendous.
Really?
Yeah, his son drummed with the Who for a while there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
He might still.
Yeah, his
Just
voice
in a band
great.
when George Harrison is scraping and scratching to get 2 songs on the record, Ringo doesn't have a band.
Yeah.
You know, he can't really complain.
And he always sort of did the novelty songs off all the albums.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure.
Oh, his whole life he did a lot of novelty music. But I love, Don't Come Easy. I love that.
Oh, his solo stuff?
Yeah, his
Photograph?
solos. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That stuff is great.
Yeah. And the sheer volume of stuff he had coming out when they broke up. I think he probably had more coming out than
I
anybody.
think he had the first hit, if I remember correctly.
Was it Photograph?
That might have been.
Yeah. But hey, but back to comics and Halloween time, huh?
See, I do love the Beatles, sort of kind of. You know?
Well,
And
also,
of course, Monsters Unleashed is a segue to the old, to the old monsters.
Yeah, look at that.
Which is coming out now. It's a current,
sure.
Monsters Only,
you know.
I hold that up. Lenticular cover.
Yep.
yep.
I'm glad I got to do that.
I did get a question on Twitter. Actually, a few of them I wanted to run by you guys.
Cool.
One of them was just wondering whether it has to do with comics or not. Favorite movies for Halloween time? Favorite stuff, like historically, whether it's now. And I'm sorry, I don't remember the exact phrasing question, but it was just over the course of your life. What did you dig when you were young? Is there anything that you go to now?
My favorite films of all time are the Universal monsters. You know, the original.
Yeah.
Frankenstein,
Yeah.
Bride of Frankenstein, Karloff.
Yeah.
And I know they've done better versions per se, but Bela Lugosi as Dracula. I know they have rubber bats on strings and stuff, but just the whole thing. The original Wolfman is just spectacular.
Yes.
I mean, there again, Bela's in that too. But
Creature.
Let me put it this way: to try to relate to what's going on today, go with the '80s stuff.
Yeah.
Go with Freddy. Go with Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and then get into I don't know if they've ever been more sci-fi than horror, but the trilogy of Predator, Terminator, Aliens.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
the first couple Aliens were just spectacular. The first 2 were
Oh,
spectacular.
Oh,
sure.
I saw that in the theater.
And I know they're science fiction suspense, but to me that's horror.
Oh yeah.
Listen, at the end of that movie, when the steam is all blowing around and she's running through the ship, there isn't anything more terrifying than that.
It's a haunted house in space. I mean, it's definitely horror.
It's scary.
Yeah.
I was scared. I remember being in the theater waiting for that thing to jump out. I'm like going, wow, this is real. I felt tense. I was like, this is really tense. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that those movies, the 3 of Jason, Michael, and Freddy, still today influence. Not so much the Frankenstein from 31,
Right.
or the stuff from back then, but I think those 3. We have Freddy right up front here.
Yeah.
Scream is just a takeoff of the '80s stuff.
Sure.
Make sense?
Oh yeah, and it all just keeps on going because by the time you get to Saw, and the Jigsaw character, that kind of introduced that whole torture porn kind of thing, along with Hostel and things like that. And I think that there's a direct line from that, because then you get into Final Destination, which kind of has that same element to it, and it just goes on. Yeah, for me, Friday the 13th is where it's always been for me personally.
I can remember the impact on my mind when I saw Halloween in the theater the first time, the original Halloween.
Oh, nice.
I thought. I was amazed by it. I'm a Carpenter fan, though.
That's exactly what I was getting ready to say.
I'm a huge Carpenter fan because I also saw the remake of The Thing in the theater as well.
Wow.
And I thought he captured. I just thought he captured it well, always.
You got the Omen, Rosemary's Baby.
Yeah.
All those are still today. You can still see them. That feel running through today's horror films.
Yeah.
A lot better effects and stuff today. Yeah. But the feel of all of them it's all right there.
And they're struggling. It's like if that feel is sugar, these guys are definitely like Splenda. They're going for it, but they're not quite there.
I'll give a shout out to the whole Evil Dead trilogy too.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of that, and which all goes back to the really obscure film Equinox, but we won't get into that. But that whole thing, because I like it because it's horror, then it turns into fun.
Right.
The Army of Darkness is a great movie for me because it has horror in it, but it has the humor. I like the way it's sort of twisted out.
And that's hard to do. Like when you're trying to mix humor and horror at the same time, most of the time I think it falls flat because you're stepping on one or the other.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And it's funny because that movie does sort of like, they do step on each other, but it still comes out good. And I think the new Clay Glue being Bruce Campbell, I think the guy's really talented.
Yeah.
I just always thought he carried himself really well. And the new series, the new Ash vs. Evil Dead that was on, I thought it was great.
I didn't get a chance to see it yet.
I thought it was really good. And I got my wife, who was really not into that kind of stuff, sort of like, she's sort of, when it got really graphic, she she enjoyed the story. She thought it was really cool. So I give a shout out to them too. I'm a Jeepers Creepers guy.
Yeah. Never seen it.
The classics go without saying. I mean, it's
I'll tell you, when you were talking about the Universal stuff, I'm always a big fan, whether it's wrestling or horror or whatever. I always like it if it's really, really good or really bad. Like I just like I love that stuff. And something that kind of fell in between, because I think the tragic backstory was Frankenstein versus the Wolfman, where Bela Lugosi finally played Frankenstein. And I mean, I love that movie. It's like an hour and 10 minutes. I think it's pretty tight.
Yeah.
But at that point, he was pretty far gone, and I don't know. I really liked it. I thought it was cool, and to see him in that role, but know that he turned it down. The initial role that was given to Karloff, and always had that animosity about it and everything.
Yeah. And then again, but to see Karloff and his cheeks and everything, how gaunt he was, and to me, that's my favorite image of all movies is Boris Karloff Frankenstein.
Sure. Oh, the head.
There is
the head.
I have a life size one in my room.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And it was very expensive, and it's so cool looking.
Yeah. Tom Savini's is really wild. I remember staring at it for like a half an hour when he had him out on display. It was a Pittsburgh Comic Con. Yeah. I think he had the Creature and he had Franken. He had all
and the Mummy.
Yeah, and I could remember just like looking at him.
I got a picture over there with him, and you can see the tops of the heads.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
right in front of him.
Yeah,
like cool. Bongo drums or something.
Oh man, I was just mesmerized.
Yeah, the image of
mesmerized.
That's terrible.
Phantom of the Opera there, Lon Chaney.
Yeah, wow, senior. Yeah, I mean, but
senior moment.
Exactly. That image right there with his teeth and everything, and his makeup, and it's sort of like whenever I say how timeless The Wizard of Oz is. I hope they never ever remake it, because you'll never touch that magic. That's a beautiful film. Yeah. You can see the painted landscapes in the back, and even the Frankenstein. You can see almost the winds, with the backgrounds and stuff. It's all painted, just canvas.
Yeah.
But there's something about that, and there again, Lon Chaney Jr. Being Wolfman.
Yeah.
I mean the makeup is just
unbelievable. There was something I never could put my finger on it in Phantom of the Opera, but at the end when the townspeople are chasing him, with the pitchforks and everything, and he stops them. And I was watching this documentary that somebody actually pointed out. I think it was Joe Dante, who I believe directed Gremlins, and he stopped like he had a bomb or something, and the townspeople are running down after him on all sides, and he turns around and holds his fist out like this, and they all like recoil and step back. And then after a second, he opens his hand. There's nothing, and he just starts smiling like, "I got you one last time."
Yeah.
Gotcha. And that's such an awesome moment.
I don't know. I'm speechless because I just everything about the season and the movies and such. I just love all of it. And I grew up loving all that stuff. I mean, I was immediately attracted to it. It wasn't forced on me.
Right.
I just saw. I mean, I saw it and absorbed it. My parents thought it was sort of weird, I guess, a little bit, but they never give me a hard time. I mean, I can remember sitting up and watching Creature Feature with my dad.
Yeah.
You know, and it was cool. And
my dad showed me the original Night of the Living Dead. I was about 10 or 11 years old, and they said Cumberland, Maryland on there. I was like, oh, this could be an issue.
Yeah.
This could be a problem.
Yeah.
Because I know John Carpenter's Thing. That's my all-time favorite horror movie. I mean,
it's a great movie. It's fantastic.
And I was surprised at how much it's Rob Bottin or Rob Bottin, but he was the effects. I guess the special effects guy on that movie. And if you watch the Laserdisc or the DVD with the commentary, John Carpenter gives him all the credit. He's like, he kept trying to do this stuff, and I was like, no. Then he'd do it. Like, he very much gets all the credit for that. If he's not in that mix, that's not the same movie.
Yeah.
But I saw it probably in 1987, which would have made me 10 or 11, and I can remember pausing the VCR to try to collect myself and get ready to go back into it. When that dog splits open, I was just like,
the scene for me is when they're doing the chest compressions and that the body opens up. I was like, what? And the head crawls away like a little spider.
Oh, it's awesome.
I was like, oh, man.
Oh, the chest busters from Aliens.
Yeah.
The first time you seen that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, what's going on? And this thing just busts out of his stern.
Yeah.
You're like, whoa.
And in Aliens, when that girl's in the hive and she's like, please kill me.
Yeah.
I just remember thinking, man, you must be in bad shape when you're begging somebody to kill you.
Yeah. And, of course, one of your favorites, speaking of monsters, This Man, This Monster.
Oh, yeah.
The Thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You know,
a tragic figure.
You always consider. So it's funny because most of my favorite characters are monsters.
Yeah.
They would be seen. You know, if the Thing walked through here right for you, you'd be like, "What in the world is that?"
Right.
That's a monster.
Yeah.
Inside, he's just a man, and that's what Stan did so well. You know, because I know Jack had a lot of the ideas and a lot of the characters, but without Stan's writing, I mean, just golden.
Well, we'd all sit here and say, "Oh, if the Thing was real, we'd be his friend. He'd be awesome." But with no context, I think most people would react the way most people in the comics react. It's like, what is that? I start fearing for your life.
Absolutely.
And stuff.
Yeah, the reaction would be, "I'm afraid. Run away."
Yeah.
No interaction. Run. You know.
And of course, one of everyone's favorite characters of all time, Batman.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's all they don't call him the Dark Knight for nothing.
Right.
It's all about being in alleyways and the darkness in the nighttime and
his rogue gallery, one can argue that most of his rogues gallery are monsters.
Yes.
Like we said, the Joker, but Killer Croc, who's going to say that's not a monster? Man-Bat?
Scarecrow.
Scarecrow.
Back in the day, people, some of the most, earliest Halloween costumes in this country anyways, scarecrows.
Calendar Man.
And witches and things like that. Calendar Man.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you guys while I was thinking about it here, Walking Dead, did you see the season premiere?
Yep.
What'd you think?
Starts off on a good note.
Yeah.
Finally.
Yeah.
And hopefully it doesn't peter out here because I know it's going to be 8 episodes as usual, really short. And about 4 of them are going to be, is this thing going anywhere?
Right.
Like I said, the whole show, as with everything, it's like any relationship you have. It starts out just great. You just can't get enough of it.
Yeah.
And then slowly but surely it gets like, I've had enough of it.
It's like the first 3 or 4 episodes of every season is the honeymoon period.
Yeah.
I agree. It was a good starting point, though.
Yeah.
But it set it up to move fast, don't you think? Isn't it set up to move? Because the fist was thrown. The gauntlet was dropped.
Yeah, but see, the thing is, and stuff. Knowing, I don't read the comic book, and you guys know this.
Yeah.
But
neither do I. I've read some of them.
Everyone knows that there's the Whisperers. Everyone knows that Negan and Rick. If you haven't, you should know. But you know that they have this uneasy alliance. They have to fight other people. In the comic books, they almost have to team up.
Yeah.
As they always say in the Marvel team up.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, they're going to, Spider-Man and Daredevil are going to kill each other. And then by the end, they're hugging and kissing because there's another person that comes in that's a bigger problem than those two.
Right.
That's just classic. It's classic storylines.
And it's been done
with
million
Rick,
times.
From the comic book that him and Negan are going to have, they're going to need each other.
Sure.
If they go that way. And I can't say they're going to.
Right.
Yeah.
And no one's ever going to
That's the
trust
beauty of
Negan.
it. That's the beauty of it, because they might not. From what we know, it looks like it's going to go that way. But Daryl doesn't exist in the comic book world. So.
My problem with the episode was that after all that had happened, when Negan is standing out on that balcony with his primary people, like his kind of senior council, why didn't they just shoot him? Like, it's like, I understand the story has to continue, so don't put Rick in a situation where he's got a fully automatic machine gun,
Well,
he's
also,
hidden, and the guy's right there. Boom, it's over.
Yeah.
10 people just start firing away, and they all walk away.
Yeah.
All of Negan's guys. They didn't show any of them being killed or anything.
Yeah. But I mean, when they're all standing there, if we're all sitting right there, and he's like butchered your friends and threatened your family's lives.
Open up.
Boom! Like, why do you got to get the words in?
You just open up.
And I get it. It's like, it's a TV show. You got to look past that. But don't put Rick in a spot where you leave the audience. Don't put any of the characters in a spot where you leave the audience saying, why didn't he do that? Like, when they're, I think that's when the show's at its worst, is when the characters are acting against their own best interests.
Because he said, I'm going to kill him. I'm going to kill him.
Yeah.
I'm going to be the one to kill him. I'm going to kill you. I told you once. And he goes 1, 2 and starts firing. And he doesn't hit anybody.
Yeah. I mean, just the way, and the fact that Negan comes out all just strutting around, knowing they're all behind, behind there with automatic weapons. I mean, he can see it. They show that. I was just kind of like, okay.
Well, that's where the it's not jumping the shark, but that's where this show is going to fall. And I've noticed that the past couple of seasons, it's going to start falling into the formula.
Yeah.
As you said, it's like Glenn when he was underneath the dumpster. It's like, how in the world is he going to get out of this?
Right.
There's zombies everywhere. They know he's under there. They can smell him. Yeah. How is he ever going to get out of this?
Yeah. Right.
And they never show that.
Huh?
Sort of. They never really, the whole trickery to it, they never really.
Right. So, whenever people like Daryl and stuff should die in a certain circumstance and doesn't, then you start going, okay, this is becoming Hollywood. Right. They're starting to save these characters because of their popularity. In the first couple seasons, people were just, you're gone.
Yeah.
From Herschel and everything, it's like, you got to go. It's time. You've been on the show X amount of days. You got to go. And the same with Rick. He's been on the verge of death X amount of times.
Yeah.
And you're like, how many times can he be where Negan's right there getting ready to shoot him and cut his hand off or this and do that and stuff?
Well, I can see, obviously, I can see saving Rick. I mean,
but you can't keep putting him in a position where the odds of him surviving are.
If I'd have been on that crew and somehow somebody would have come back, like I'm waiting to hold the fort down, and they come back with a videotape and show Rick standing there, not shooting him, and just bantering when he could have killed him, knowing that my safety's on the line.
Yeah.
I would have killed Rick, or else I would have overthrown him, or I'd have been bent out of shape to say the least. It's like you're sabotaging the whole situation here, and that it just goes back to the writing of the show. I don't know.
Right. And on a more serious note, and not real life, not to intertwine real life with movies, but there are people in war heroes that have done incredible things.
Sure.
That are given, the big Medal of Honors and Congressional and Purple Hearts that have saved 30 people against 100 people.
Right. Yeah. Sure. Absolutely.
So, was it Sergeant York and all those people? So I'm not saying none of this can happen, but X amount of times this happens.
Yeah.
Right.
Someone needs to die. Rick, Negan, Daryl, someone needs to die.
To maintain the integrity and the spirit of the show.
Maggie, whatever her name is, someone needs to die.
You bring that up, it's funny because my dad was a navigator in B-17s of World War II.
Yeah.
And he flew 30 missions. And when he got back to the States, he taught flight school a little bit. He taught navigation and things like that. But he never, ever got on a commercial airliner or airplane of any type ever again in his life.
Really?
Never. And he could have flown anywhere, at either free or at a very reduced rate. He never wanted my mom, but he specifically said he would never get in an airplane again. Ever. He said, hey, he said, I made it through all that. He's like, I don't miss anything about being in an airplane.
Time, huh?
I don't
borrowed time on airplanes.
I don't miss anything about being in an airplane. I don't want to be. And he never got in an airplane.
Wow.
Never. Of any kind. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
That is crazy.
What's the next question, Ed? We got one?
I'm trying to think what the other one was. Well,
because I have a question if you don't.
Yeah, absolutely.
One. Oh, please.
Okay, this I can't believe.
Please.
Maybe we have. Maybe my old timers just coming in here. Name an artist and a writer, or it could be both, the same person that you would have on a book. You want a particular 6-issue series. Who's the artist and who's the writer you put on that book?
They have to be alive, I'm assuming. Or is that any time?
No. It could be anybody.
Oh, Lee and Kirby, FF Run. Another one.
No, not like I said. Not a run. No, not something new stuff.
New stuff.
Oh, okay.
In other words, who do you think would do a good job? So who has a proven track record that?
Okay.
I mean, I'm not saying that can't be your answer.
Right. No, I know what you're saying. They're getting together to produce something brand new.
Right.
Okay.
And like I said, Stanley, obviously his best work is 30, 40 years ago.
Sure.
And that's, of course, that's still some of the best ever. So.
I tell you what, I'm going to go with Garth Ennis as the writer. He's writing a book called, right now he's doing Punisher Platoon. Mm-hmm. And it's about this.
I like Ennis.
Yeah, there's this reporter who's basically interviewing these older gentlemen that turn out they were in Frank Castle's first platoon in Vietnam prior to everything happening. And they're interviewing him trying to put together the pieces of it. And it's pretty gory and pretty violent, but it moves right along like most of Garth Ennis' stuff does. It moves right along real nice. And I would probably put him with Mark Bagley because he's probably Mark Bagley or Eric Larson.
You think those guys would fit? I'll play devil's advocate. You think they would fit something as gritty as he's going to put out?
I think Eric Larson could. I mean, that very first 3-issue miniseries from, this is going down the rabbit hole, but the 3-issue miniseries for Savage Dragon that came out back in like 91.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Remember the opening of that where that arachnid monster is in it like has all the bodies, all those kids and stuff in that thing that he goes in. I remember thinking that was real visceral and creepy looking. I think he definitely could. And Mark Bagley, I think everybody, Mark Bagley and Eric Larson are both talented enough that I wouldn't want to shortchange them. I would be interested to see what they come up with. Yeah. It might not be their forte up till now, but
Bag's take on the Venom right now looks really good. I mean, his art's really
it might be.
It's come together. It's really nice,
and it might be a little too clean for what I'm saying. But I think
that's what I'm asking. Because Larson's very cartoony, and I don't know if that would.
I don't know. Some of his stuff, like, it kind of has that scattered, kind of sketchy feel to it. I don't know.
I'll tell you something. I don't know if you've ever seen it, and I know you have, though, when you talk about that idea, which is a great idea. There's a one-shot Punisher that Corbin did that's out of this world. I mean, and I think he would be really cool revisiting the past of Frank Castle. But yeah, because that one-shot, I remember that. I read that thing at least 10 times. I was like, this is really good. He's so good with, like, gritty things like that. Getting your hands dirty. Yeah.
You know what? And if I could throw out just a third one there with Garth Ennis, I'd like to see what he does with Sam Keith. I think that could be.
I'd like to see Sam Keith do anything.
Yeah.
I mean,
I would like Sam Keith to have someone else write for him.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Because some of his stuff, I'm not even sure where it's going.
Yeah. I know, but visually, you just are completely drawn to it.
Oh,
I mean, I am. Visually, I just go, wow, that's cool.
And like with the Max, it took so long to get it out. It was like, well, we may never know where it's going.
And then it went down like some kind of psycho babble crazy land, But it was. But I always still loved and appreciated art. I was a nut about Keith when he came out. I jumped on that. I jumped on that immediately. Yeah. I had Kamiko Primer #5 with the original Max story with the rabbits. I dug all the way in, but. When he did that Hulk with Kelly Jones, the Gray Hulk where he meets Mr. Hyde, that one shot, before that was right before the Simonson, the countdown, when he was poisoned. There was just that one shot. It's 268. He does the art and Kelly Jones inks it, and it is. I love his take on the Hulk. I loved it. I was like, he could have done. I said, let him do the Hulk. Of course, Dale Keown came on, which was great, but man, Shevitz. He's cool. I just like him. He's very cool.
Where in Sam Keith's career did he jump into the Marvel Comics Presents stuff? When he was doing with Wolverine and I remember the Wolverine Nightcrawler.
Yeah,
story.
He did covers and then he did the story on the inside. That would have been what, the late '80s, early '90s.
I mean, was that fairly early into his run?
Was when you had the shop? Probably somewhere. Wasn't it around that time?
Should have been.
Yeah. That's when I started seeing him do covers and things like that. That's when I became certainly interested in him. I mean, around that time. I'm trying to think what else he was doing.
How far was it though from like the Kamiko #5?
Oh, that time frame? Probably like 5 or 6 years.
Oh wow!
Imagine.
Okay.
Well, that's when Grendel. That would have been when was that?
That's what, mid '80s.
Mid '80s. Yeah, so it would be the mid '80s to the early '90s. That's when that happened. He did some covers too. He did some. I'm trying to think. What's that one? That I saw you had a couple issues over there. That vampire series where you did a couple covers. I can't think what the title was. Blood of Dracula. Okay. Blood of Dracula on a real obscure. It was a real obscure, company, but he did covers for Blood of Dracula. That would have been in between that time frame too. So, and then he just he burst. He sort of he burst, and then the Max and everybody was excited, and then as soon as that happened, he vanished. I mean, he vanished. Yeah. Occasionally you see him partner up with somebody on a cover or something like that. I was like, Sam, where'd you go?
Yeah, what happened?
What happened to you?
What's your team for a hard book?
Scott Snyder doing the writing, and Rich Corbin doing the artwork. Arkham Asylum.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That is awesome.
Yeah, because Snyder, man, stuff that I've read, those trade paperbacks, the Court of Owls and stuff, man, unbelievable.
Solid stuff.
Yeah.
Very. Yeah, I mean, he's he's wordy sometimes, but it all makes sense. Right. Every once in a while, someone's just a step higher. You see these guys, these new cats come out, and you're like, wow, that's really good. Yeah. He's got new ideas. Just to read a Batman Joker story and enjoy it after 40-some years of reading and probably, 25 times, they've battled to see a new angle. Snyder has a good, he's coming up with some fresh ideas, and I like it.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I like someone like Corbin to do his wonky artwork. On Arkham Asylum, so he could go crazy with a lot of those characters that we've already talked about.
Yeah.
Go something dark.
Yeah.
And Snyder seems to be able to get in the psyche of these characters. And
I loved Corbin did that one shot, that black and white one shot. Monster Maker, remember in the solo books? Batman
solo book.
Yeah, Batman Black and they did solo, but was it in around same Batman Black and White?
Batman, yeah.
Yeah, he did a story with Batman called Monster Maker. It was about battling the young street thugs becoming thugs, the battling, that whole thing. He did that really well, but I think he would do very well doing all of Batman's foes, I think he would be great for that.
With a backup story by Eric Powell. It'd be cool to see.
Yeah, and you said I was waiting for you to say Eric Powell because I think Eric Powell does do horror stories. I mean, it's,
He does, but there again, he's not that he always is, but he's slightly cartoonish.
I thought that it would be cool just when you were saying that. I'd like to see Eric Powell do a take on the 60s Batman. A Batman comic story that's from the 60s.
Yeah.
And kind of play it up a little bit, like on the satire, kind of self-aware, make it a little more irreverent.
They'd have to let him run wild.
Right, exactly.
And it would have to be a little bit more, I don't know, adult-oriented.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but let him play to his strengths, but I think it would be entertaining.
Yeah, because if you ever read, was it Satan's Sodomy Baby? You know that he can really
what's funny?
Get crazy.
We're talking about being down the rabbit hole. We're deep down the rabbit hole. When you say Satan, sodomy and babies, and we all instinctively start laughing.
Yeah. And know what it is.
Like, I remember that.
And that's probably Eric trying to get away with what he can, but at the same time, a lot of it was political because the first one had like Oprah in it and other people, and he was just making social commentary.
Sure.
Because when you just hear the title, you're like, what? That can't be on a. It was bagged and everything, so it was clearly labeled. It was not for kids.
Right.
But there wasn't anything in there. I mean, you had Trump in the second one. Funny stuff. Not the way you wanted to see Donald Trump in any way, shape, or form. Kids don't go read that, but it is for adults. It's pretty funny stuff, and it is all tongue in cheek stuff. There's nothing.
Yeah. This
it's not porn.
I was thinking because you guys are coming up with some great ideas. I've been so high on Spawn lately, I can't even stop thinking about it because I really like, and I love the creative team that is on it now. I like Jason Alexander, not to be confused with Seinfeld. Sean Alexander. He's really good. He's really talented. But I was thinking, I so loved the Doctor Strange run that Chris Bacall did. I think Bacall on Spawn would be really.
He's another
cool. And maybe Alan Moore do it, Alan Moore wrote a couple issues of Spawn. I remember back in the day when Todd was getting other creative people interested in things, or like they were interested in it and wanted to do things. I think he did write a couple of the stories in Spawn.
I asked the Comic-Con to bring Kahlo in.
Yeah, I think he'd do a great take on Spawn. I really do. I think he'd be great for it.
It really speaks to the quality of that book, for its longevity, obviously.
Yeah.
But they basically are hitting the 30th anniversary of that book, and which is crazy.
They are 21 issues away from 300 now.
Yeah. So there's all these things, and then to go into such a departure artistically on that book, I thought that was a really gutsy move, and it works. It couldn't be further from like the Capullo style.
Well, the thing, it was really cool. Greg sort of helped formulate the change, because it really went from more of a sort of superhero-ish kind of look to like really at times really deep dark horror. Because I'm like, wow, Angel Medina's run on it too. Sort of, I mean, I don't know, all the artists that went through and did that. I like it's led it to where it is now.
Right.
I think it's led it to where it is. I love it because it really is a genuine cool horror title to me.
You see this, and I just thought about the correlation between Spawn, where it's at, and old rock groups.
Yeah.
Where there's, whether you like them or not, I'm going to throw them out there. You got R.R. Speedwagon out there, playing all the time. You got Styx, still playing great shows, still sounding great. But you stick around long enough, and the people that liked you in the first place, oh, yeah, that's still coming out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right,
You go 200 or 300 issues, which is really rare for a comic book.
Yes.
And now people are starting to come back around and say, hey, have you seen Spawn? I haven't read it in years.
Right.
It's been 20, if you can sit there and say, it's been 20 years since I've read a Spawn.
Right.
This is must-read stuff.
It's like it's also now benefiting from the nostalgia factor.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's been around long enough where all these, when you go see Foreigner and people are like, I didn't know they had all these hits.
Yeah.
You weren't around, when we were.
Right.
But a lot of these groups, if you just stick around long enough, Def Leppard, still sells out Poison, all these bands.
Yeah.
They don't sell any records, but people remember them, and they're still out there doing their thing. And McFarlane's kept that floating for so long when he could have let it go because of the success of his action figures.
Well,
and a lot of other stuff.
The numbers on that book were like sinking. I mean, and that's the thing now. Collecting it, I'm lucky because I happen to have a lot of those issues where I guess Spawn sort of got forgotten for a little while.
Yeah,
and then I really think when he did those homage covers, and they were low print runs, people buzz. I mean, I know I buzz. I still need one. And I'm trying to find one. Mm-hmm. But I think that was really smart because he threw it back to people like, going, oh yeah, look at that cover. I remember that. He was sort of, and at the time the sale. I mean, Spawn's readership was probably not super high. I mean, it's not. But I think it reeled people back, and I think it reminded people and went, that is so cool. Yeah. And it came around, and you started to look at it again, going, wait a second, he's really evolved this character.
Oh, he does. He does a convention.
This is super cool.
It's super lines.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I met him in 87, and lines back then. Of course, he was doing Spider-Man. Just got done Hulk, I think, at the time. Mm-hmm. So he was super popular. This before Image, obviously. Mm-hmm. A couple years before Image, and I think if he does a convention now, there's super lines for him.
Oh,
it's not going to be sitting there going, maybe McFarlane. Yeah, there's about 5 or 10 people in line. It's like, no, I don't think so.
No,
5.
And he hasn't really per se done anything in comics for a long time.
It was.
He does an occasional cover. Well, he does co-write. He does throw some of his. Actually, he's not writing now, but he does sort of.
But he's becoming one of the legendary figures.
Sure.
Oh, for sure.
Without a doubt.
I think he's probably been there a while.
Without a doubt.
He did the variant cover to Spawn this month.
Yeah.
It was a Walking Dead tribute cover.
Right.
Yeah, and it's really really neat. And then they do it in black and white, and it really shows.
Yeah, he does do some of the work on the covers. Every now and then, just to
because he still shows. My brother Dean will send me. Where he's doing those things.
Yeah, his drawings.
His drawings, and
it's
like, why do I care what Todd McFarlane? He hasn't drawn a comic book in how many years?
Yeah.
Right.
I think he did part of, was it 100? Was it?
Yeah.
Back in the day, he drew like the first half of it.
Oh wow.
Oh, 100's Capullo. I mean, I think he did they all there was several variant covers.
Yeah, it was one of the things where he actually come back and did like half the book, and he hasn't done hardly anything since then. But yet, why do I care to sit there and watch him do Spider-Man? Because he's always been very unique, and I've defended before in this podcast Liefeld and Lee and everyone else for, I don't care what you think of them now, but back then they were very innovative.
Yeah.
Liefeld, his Cable. I mean, you forget the stuff that he was on. Whenever it was the Deadpool and all that kind of stuff. that he was actually on these books.
Yeah.
He was one of the hottest artists out there. They made a commercial with him in it.
Yeah.
Out of all the guys.
The Levi 501 jeans commercial.
Yeah, Spike Lee.
And you created X-Force, and I was like, that's the one I'm thinking.
Hey,
of.
I gotta say that. I gotta say this. Those covers were captivating. I mean, you know, that we've examined the flaws, and they're there. However, you know what? When you're walking by, you stop. You mean you're like, oh, you would look at it. You looked at it. You know,
Yeah.
I mean,
I looked at it in disgust.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, sure, I get it. I mean, when I saw him try to translate to doing whole books, I'm like going, oh my god, you know,
Yeah.
you know, but he could do. Boy, I tell you, he was the king, man. Those covers, you know, they were like coming out. That's your.
Well, he was. You know, it's like every trend now. Of course, one of the most recent ones, and now it's was it 25, 30 years down, but 26 years. But the whole Seattle grunge.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh,
well, you still had characters and stuff. You know,
Tim,
you had different groups. Soundgarden
Tim.
is not Nirvana in any way, shape, or form, or Alice in Chains, or Pearl Jam. There are different groups. I mean, Pearl Jam and Nirvana, even though they're all clumped together, they don't sound like the same band.
Right.
So when you had that image, when they make that mass exodus from Marvel, and you had Valentino, and you had Silvestri, and all these guys. Silvestri, he doesn't do anything. I really wish, because he was a great artist.
How about Willis?
Huh?
How about
Yeah,
Willis?
Walter Portacio.
Yeah, does
All
an
those
occasional
guys, you know,
cover.
they really brought
love
comic
his
books
work.
into a modern feel.
Yeah.
Still to this day, you're still seeing that image look to a lot of things. And it did not exist before then.
I remember those books coming out initially, and especially because the ones I got immediately were Spawn, Savage Dragon.
Yeah.
I didn't care
Yes,
about
me
the
too.
Wildcats. I didn't care about Youngblood. I didn't care about Shadowhawk.
The Max when it rolled around and
And the Max.
and Wetworks because I loved Willis.
Yeah,
I loved Willis.
and I'll to be fair to him, I didn't even give that book a chance because I
Yeah.
think it was the last one that came out, and I had picked up Wildcats #1 and Youngblood #1. I was like, I didn't like either one of them for different reasons. I thought, you know what, I'm not even giving this one a chance. But the thing that stood out with the Max and with Savage Dragon and Spawn was just how bright and colorful
Yes.
everything was, and it was so much prettier to look at than any of the books coming out by Marvel or DC, at least that I was looking at the time.
Sure.
And you remember, like, especially with Savage Dragon, I just remember it always seeming like it bled across the page, like it just went all the way off the edge, and Marvel didn't really do that as much as then.
Spawn did.
Well, maybe you
Spawn
guys
did
can
as well.
Well, maybe you guys can help me out here. I don't remember. I think when they went and did Image, they took this style with them. Am I forgetting this correctly? Marvel and DC did not pick up that style. You know, the Image style that the Jim Lee, Liefeld, McFarlane. Am I not thinking this? Am I remembering this correctly? Because I don't think they sat there and said, "Hey, we need a McFarlane. Go find somebody that draws like that."
No, I don't think that either. No,
not at all.
I think
Which is really strange because here are the very successful books with these guys on it. Jim Lee's artwork, McFarlane, these guys. When they left, they just sort of took that whole style with them.
I think that they probably were heavily influencing Marvel, and I only speak to Marvel because that's what I was looking at the time, but to brightening up the colors and really bleeding the ink into that page, because I remember Fantastic Four with, like, Walt Simonson. I wasn't a fan of the work, and if you remember, it always kind of looked kind of bleached out. The color wasn't really great, and it was the same thing on Amazing Spider-Man. It kind of had that same feel, and then after those guys left and Spawn and Savage Dragon were coming out, I just remember picking up, again, the books I got were Spectacular, Amazing, and Fantastic Four. The color just came up, like they were like, okay, we got to do something about this. I believe that was probably a conscious decision.
Yeah.
But it's strange that Marvel would see the success. These guys were so successful, they said goodbye to Marvel. They said goodbye to a lucrative career.
Yes.
And they're like, we're out of here. And then they took their stuff and was very successful with Image. But Marvel and DC didn't step in and say, we should draw like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever see that documentary about the Image guys? And it was on YouTube briefly, and then it was on Netflix. Did you ever see it?
I've never seen it.
It basically has those guys, the 5 founding fathers, they put it, telling the story, and it just bounces between them. And Rob Liefeld's on there, and he's like, we walked in the Marvel offices, and I want to say it was Jim Shooter. Was he the editor-in-chief at the time those guys left? I believe that's who it was.
I don't know.
But in any case, they're like, we walked in, and Todd just said, let me do the talking, and basically laid out what they wanted. And when they hesitated and said no, he says, then we're out. And Rob Liefeld said, he's like, he got up to leave, and I just remember my heart beating out of my chest, and I could hear it in my ears, and we just got up and walked out because Todd said, like, this is what we're going to do, and this is the plan, and he was confident. I was like, what is going to happen next? They got up and walked out. He said, we walked across the street and
I
started.
don't know if Liefeld has anything to do with Image anymore.
He's doing the Youngblood covers.
But I'm
If
saying
you look at
operations wise.
No, if you look at the book, Todd and Eric are both and Silvestri. If you look,
They're the administrative guys.
Yeah, it's printed. I mean, I just you mentioned it's really funny. I just happened to read the new Spawn, and I just happened to look down there. I saw Mark Silvestri is and Larson and Todd seem to be the ones that are very much.
Well, it's crazy because obviously Jim Lee took Wildstorm and went to DC, and surprisingly, he still does books all the time. He says you're working on a book at all times.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It might be a miniseries or something like that, 12-issue series, but for who he is, executive-wise, he's very busy as an artist.
Well, and, a guy like Jim Lee or McFarlane, I think, and a lot of other guys, Mark Bagley and on down the line, Kelly Jones, it's like if they decided to stop with the overall discipline that I'm sure it takes to put a book out on a regular basis, those guys could have a really comfortable living just going to the cons and doing sketches. I mean, if Kelly Jones is sitting there and it's your turn with your pad, what do you pay for a Batman sketch or a Batman Man-Thing sketch? You know what I mean? And it takes him, whatever, let's say he spends 20 minutes doing something with a marker.
I'm getting a Dead Man Swamp Thing right there. I don't know.
You know what I mean?
I'm like, here you go.
But I mean, if he's cranking it out the way George Perez cranks those things out, like, I mean, he does it with a marker and he'll do a quick pencil, template, and boom, 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 in 10 minutes, here you are, $65. If it's Kelly Jones or... what's the price on that? If it's McFarlane whipping up a Spawn, what is that worth? $150 or $200?
Yeah, that's I don't. You know what? My understanding is he does a lot of cons, and he doesn't. I don't think he charges, but the lines are a million miles long. I think he just probably does signings. I don't
McFarlane?
Yeah, I don't know if you might get a commission, but you'd probably pay a fair penny to get a commission.
I'm sure
for sure.
Well, he said this before. He sits down and he signs.
Yeah.
He doesn't take breaks. He just signs the whole time. That's how he was back at the Mid-Ohio Con, and supposedly that's still how he is today.
This book here, this homage cover, basically, there's a company that goes out twice a year, and they go to his house, and he sits down and signs. That's how I got mine signed. I mean, he just sits down, he signs them, and for fans if they want to get them, graded and things like that. But at cons, he just, you're right, he sits there and signs the whole time, and it's very cool about it. They say he's super cool, but the problem is so many people want his autograph. He could. I mean, he certainly could. I mean, absolutely, drawing little Spawn heads. Are you kidding?
We haven't even talked about his figures. I mentioned them, but his figures,
so cool.
Again, he all of a sudden. Yeah. It's on a totally different level.
Yeah, the figures took it up to here.
I mean, the likeness that when you see the football figure, I have the Johnny Unitas, and you see the Johnny Unitas action figure, it looks like Johnny Unitas. Yeah. Not one of those Mego characters. They just changed the character, like the Secret Wars, the ones that Marvel did. Back in the day, it just looks like they just repainted the same character. Yeah. Redid a couple things, and that's all it is.
It's like it might as well be a statue.
Yeah, but his detail, the army men. Anything that he's done.
I have the heap. The heap's crazy. Got a shovel coming out of his head and an old rubber tire. I'm like, oh wow, this is a cool figure.
Yeah, they're not per se action figures. They're more of action statues.
Yeah.
The McFarlane's.
Kin. It's really cool looking. I mean, I study them. They're the detail for an action figure. It's meticulous. They're really cool. I love them. I think they're great.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Well, guys, we're getting ready to wrap up here. We're going to have...
that went fast.
Yeah, Calling All Heroes is sponsoring, again, along with literally thousands of other stores across the country. It's the Halloween Comic Fest. Yeah, and it's going to kick off today from noon to 5. We have over 1,000 comic books to give away. They also sent, in addition to the full-size books, I don't know if you guys saw the mini comics.
Yes.
And they're all like for younger kids, and I mean, anybody can enjoy them, but they're specifically targeted for that. So
that's cool.
If you're watching, I'm thinking when this airs, you guys will probably have about a half an hour before the shop opens. Definitely stop by and just pick up some comics. There's nothing, there's no purchase necessary at all. Just come on in, have some food, have a good time, enter the costume contest if you have one, and we're gonna have a great time here. I think it'll be a whole lot of fun.
Yep.
All right. So, just like to say, thanks so much again for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoy this. Please do us a favor. This is definitely going to reach a bigger audience, I think, now with the video. Let us know what you think. If you have any opinions, any ideas, suggestions, good or bad, we'd love to hear about them. And that's where I'm at. So I'm George.
I'm Gary.
And I'm Wolz.
And next week we'll hopefully have Tim.
Yeah. Timmy.
All right. Thanks so much, guys, and we will see you next week.